All right, I'm live. I'm back. It's a quiet kind of day here. Like I say, it's rain, full gray. Can't see the mountain at all today. What better day to sit and read a book and enjoy a coffee? Thank you for joining me. Go ahead, give me a thumbs up if you don't mind. That would be much appreciated. 33. So, but they can't even do that, eh? Oh, well, who cares? Who cares? I'm going to carry on reading today, though. I'm going to carry on reading Sammy the Bull Gravano. I'm noticing such a similarity to the other story. Real. There's real. All right. The last time I was on part one there, I ended up on at chapter 2 here. And it says, I wouldn't have minded going to Vietnam. You got medals for killing people there. Sammy shrugged off the draft notice to appear for a physical. All his pals told him that you took the physical and you came home. It would be months before there was a call to report for duty, if it came at all, and in any event, plenty of time to find the right doctor or lawyer to keep him out of military service. But it was 1964, and America's involvement in Vietnam was rapidly escalating. Sammy never got home. After the physical, they told us we were going that day. They took us down to a room where you had to take the oath. I refused. I figured my name must have been flagged from when my lawyer told the judge I was going to enlist in the army. I told them I wasn't joining no army. This wasn't my fight. I wasn't the only one. They took us to another room where some FBI people told us it was the army or jail. So I called up my mother and I told her I was drafted. She said, get home. I said, I can't. I had to put the sergeant on the phone to explain what was happening. I really didn't have such a big problem with it because I figured I'd be sent to Fort Dix over to in New Jersey or in Jersey for basic training, and I'd be home on the weekends, whatever. I was in a long line of guys, and an army guy was calling out Fort Dix, Fort Dix, Fort Dix. But about 6 guys in front of me, he starts saying Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. When I get up there, he tells me, you're going to Fort Jackson. I told him, I think you made a mistake. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm supposed to go to Fort Dix. He said, Fort Jackson. That was basically it. I was on my way to South Carolina that night. On a bus, actually, I ended up kind of liking the military. It wasn't all that bad. Most of it was physical. I was 19 and in real good shape. The sit-ups and push-ups, the running, the obstacle courses, all that stuff didn't bother me at all. I was right at the top of my company, and that made me feel good about myself. Every week they had boxing between the companies. I had been working out on the bags in the gym, and my sergeant came to me and said one of the guys on the company team was sick and would I fill in. Here's my girl Zoe. So I did, and I won. Now he wants me to be on the team. I said I wasn't interested. There'd be some benefits, he said. When the company was sleeping out in the field, I could be in my bunk. If I had guard duty, it'd be a nice warm barracks while everybody else was outside freezing their asses off. I could get 3-day passes into the city, which was Columbia. So I was on the team and I won a few times, but I quit. I found out the sergeants were betting on the bouts, small amounts, but they were betting nonetheless. I just didn't want to be used. I wasn't so much, it wasn't so much that they were betting, it was that they weren't upfront about it. Thinking about this now, I realize that has always been and will always be an obsession with me. So long as people are straight up with me, everything is okay. Okay, but when they try to do things behind my back, when they betray me first, I can't stand that. I hate it. Down the road, it was the same sort of thing between me and John Gotti. The discipline didn't bother me either. The rules and regulations, when um, I thought about it, made a lot of sense. I only got into trouble once. I was on KP kitchen duty with this black guy who I was friendly with, and we were on the serving line. When I had my first real experience with rebels and rednecks and racism and all that bullshit. Now I use words all the time, like I'm not going to say the N word, uh, and Mick, even greaseball, which is people from Italy. That's just the way you talk on the street. I just don't want my channel struck again for any comment that I read that's inappropriate. I don't think I'm racist, but these rednecks, they are real hardcore. Anyway, I'm on the line, and this rebel, whatever, gives the black guy a hard time about how he's dishing out the food. Then he gets to me and says, "Whip it on me, boy." I'm using a big long metal spoon, and I'm putting stuff on in the ladle compartments or the little compartments on his tray until it starts dripping over. And I stopped. I looked at him, and he dumped the tray upside down on the counter. When I tell you to whip it on me, he says, I tell you when to stop. And he says, you N words, you fucking New Yorkers better learn to listen to us. I think he might have gotten the word us before I whacked him right in the head with the spoon. I didn't realize that the guy next to him was his buddy, and he decided, or he choked me with, no, he clocked me with his metal tray. With that, the black guy jumped over the counter, and we went at them, and war broke out. Guys battling all over the place. It was crazy. Afterwards, me and the black guy sat there on the floor laughing. It didn't get to the higher ups. It was settled right in the kitchen. Everyone got chewed out and with warnings that if anything like that happened again, it would be the stockade. One of the deciding people was a sergeant who was black. His tone was harsh, but then he winked and grinned at me. I guess he felt I was defending a brother. Not that I wouldn't have, but actually the black guy jumped in to help me. He just said, Gravano, we can't put you on the line anymore. From here on, you're out back peeling potatoes. I told him, fine. I could care less. Following basic training, Sammy finally got back to Bensonhurst. Most of the time, he hung out with his girlfriend, a girl from the neighborhood named Lorraine. They'd been going together since junior high. She promised to wait for him until he was discharged. Then I got shipped to Fort something or other in Indiana and started making some extra money in the Army. Me and a guy from Boston and a couple of New York guys started a crap game on payday, which went on for a couple of days until everybody went broke. We were cutting the game, taking a percentage, taking, a cut. When the MP showed up, I grabbed one of the head guys, one of the head sergeants, and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "You can't gamble on the base. It's illegal." I said, "Are you nuts? You're getting a piece." "What are you talking about?" he said. I said, "You're in this. You're in, for Christ's sake." It took him maybe a minute to get my drift, but all of a sudden he's nodding his head and smiling, and he tells the other MP, "Hey, come on, let's get out of here." From there on, I had him on the payroll. I had a booming game. I think I had everybody on the payroll but the general. We had protection. In other words, these guys playing in our game knew they couldn't get into trouble gambling with us. No MPs were going to raid us. You're not going to the stockade and you're not going to lose your stripe if you have a stripe. The crap game led to another profitable line of business, loan sharking. We backed our game 100% with cash money. When guys went broke, we shylocked them. We paid off their debts and they owed us. Sometimes we had to chase them at payday, but mostly they come back. If you played in another game and guys busted out, how could you know you'd been paid? With us, nobody had to worry. We were full service. Sammy brought the crap game and the loan sharking with him to his next post, Fort Meade in Maryland. I was assigned to the headquarters company, 2nd Brigade, 5th Infantry Division. There was a sergeant, or there was a major in charge of the office. I was part of his staff. We were in communications. He had a black guy for his driver and a buck sergeant who handled the paperwork. Me, I was his bodyguard. When we went into the field in a jeep, I sat behind him. My thing was to secure his position if we were in combat, but we weren't, so it was nothing really. The major was a real good guy. He told me that I was a damn fine soldier and I should think about the army as a career. As a matter of fact, he had me to his house for dinner several times. He had a daughter around my age, a real good looking girl. He wanted me to take her out. "You kids want to go to the movies," he'd say. Believe me, I was very careful around her. All in all, I did very, very good in the Army. It was a hell of a lot better than jail. I got promoted to corporal. By the end of my 2 years, they wanted me to re-enlist. They offered me sergeant's stripes and any place I wanted to go in the country if I signed up for 4 years or more years. Orders had come down for the company to go to Vietnam. but I had only 4 months left, and you needed something like 10 months before they shipped you out. There were about 100 guys, and maybe 20 of us were scratched for different reasons. I wouldn't have minded going to Vietnam. You got medals for killing people there. Anyways, I got an honorable discharge. Back in Bensonhurst, Sammy returned to robbing with the Rampers, hanging out at their favorite corner luncheonette at 79th Street and Utrecht Avenue. His mother and father had retired. They had enlarged and winterized the vacation cottage on Long Island and were now living there permanently, but they still own the house on 78th Street, and Sammy moved into the downstairs apartment for a while. Then his father sold the house. He urged Sammy to join him and Kay in Ronkonkoma. There's a lot of construction work out there, or out here, Jerry told him. You could make a nice living. Instead, I had made a nice little score, Sammy said, and rented an apartment in Bensonhurst near the water. It had a doorman. Like she promised, Lorraine had waited for me, but now she wanted to get married. I should get a steady job and settle down, but I was high rolling again. I wasn't interested in a legitimate job. Still, he was torn. He loved her, and despite his reputation as a tough street kid, he had an excellent relationship with her family. Her father was a baker, Nick the Baker, a real sweetheart of a guy. I'd go by her house and watch TV with him. I'd go to the bakery, not to work, just to go there. They had a family operation. Her grandmother was the actual owner. I'd go in the back room. They had a big table where they all eat. I got along great with them, but me and Lorraine were living in two different worlds. She wanted me to get a job, have kids, but I was too far gone. There was never an arrangement or a beef, an argument or a beef. It's just that she was going for a legitimate life and I was 1,000 miles in the other direction. Breaking up with Lorraine became much easier when he met another girl, Louise Grimaldi. She was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen in my life. Absolutely, totally gorgeous. She had big blue eyes, blonde hair, beautiful skin, a completely innocent kid, too. 18 years old, just out of high school. We were going to get married. No question about it. It was just a matter of when. Her family was diverse, to put it mildly. Her mother had died just after Sammy met Louise, but he hit it off at once with her streetwise father, little Louis, even though he was close to the gallows. All her brothers uh, excelled in computers. Another would earn a PhD in the same field and teach college level computer science. Her third youngest brother, Johnny, was another story. He stayed on the Bensonhurst streets as a tough kid. Most of the rappers who were Sammy's age still cling to the one for all and all for one notion that they could make it on their own. They would take care of themselves. They didn't have to be mobbed up beyond their own circle. Only a few of them had ended up being drafted into military service, claiming to be the sole support of their families was a favorite Dodge. During Sammy's absence, one of the rampers, Louis Melito, had developed a thriving operation in which stolen vehicles were shipped out of the country for sale overseas. I was close to Louis. I needed a car. He offered to get me one at cost. The cost being what it took to rob the car, changing the engine number and the plates, getting the registration, and so forth. Louis calls me and says the car is already in a yard he uses. So I go down with a kid named Tommy Spiro, who had hooked up with the rampers. I pick up the car and I'm headed for a car wash when all of a sudden there are fucking police cars chasing me, lights flashing, sirens full blast, and they pulled me over. The cops were coming at us with guns out, and I said, "What's the matter? What happened?" This cop says, "You're in a stolen car." I said, "No, I'm not. Here's the registration. Here's my license. Here's everything." I was real cocky. He tells me, "Look, the plates don't match. These are stolen plates." So now I know what happened. The guy in the yard didn't change the plates. Next thing, the cops are under the car with mirrors and they spot where the numbers have been changed. I can't believe it. I've been breaking in, doing stick-ups all over the place, and this is my first pinch since I'm out of the army. I told the cops that Tommy Spiro was just riding with me, keeping me company. He don't know nothing. And they just took his name and let him go. Louis Melito is fucking fuming. He was even thinking of whacking the guy about the plates. But I told him, "Louis, I mean, come on. The guy forgot. Maybe it's, partly my fault. Maybe I was anxious to get the car out of the yard, and I could be just as much to blame." The guy naturally is scared to death. He pays for my lawyer, and he tells the cops that, yeah, I had come in to buy the car legitimately. He's in the used car business. He didn't know it was stolen. He said that if he had ever thought it was stolen, he wasn't stupid enough to leave the wrong plates on it. So even though I knew it was a swagged car, my lawyer's argument is that I'm an innocent victim. He talks to the prosecutor and they knocked it down to a misdemeanor. I don't mind taking a plea because misdemeanors really don't count. It's felonies that screw up your life. I think the lawyer got 2,500, 3,000. My fine was 500. The yard guy paid that too. In those days, we were young and stupid enough, I guess, to think we were invincible. Nothing could touch us. That changed. One night, I was with the rampers, Joe V. Me, we were going on a robbery, and we had to rob a car first. I had a 45 with me and a ski mask. I was getting known well enough that I was using masks. We saw this car and hotwired it. I was driving. We were about 4 or 5 blocks from where we took it. We stopped at a light and another car comes right up to us. There's a guy driving and another guy half hanging out the window with like a rifle, and he's yelling, "Pull over, you cocksucker, or I'll fucking kill you." Right away I say, "Whoa, take it easy, relax. What's the problem?" And he's screaming, "You stole my fucking car." All right, now take it easy," I said again. "Don't do anything crazy." As I'm putting up a hand saying this, I reached down for the 45. I see this bum turn towards the driver for a second, telling him something. I bring up the 45 and pull the trigger. I pulled it 3 times. Click, click, click. Nothing. Believe me, beads of sweat start coming down my forehead. He fears the clicks and he hears the clicks and he swings his rifle back towards us. Joe's sitting next to me and he's screaming, hit it, hit it. I'm hitting it. I've got this thing floored. They're right behind us. We hear shots. Then I hear Joe groan. Oh, he's clutching his stomach. A bullet has gone through the rear of the car, through the back seat, then the front seat, hits him in his back, comes out his stomach, hits his knee, and winds up hitting the dashboard. I'm turning and wheeling, driving like a bastard, and all of a sudden, bang, another one blasts through the window and hits me in the back of the head. It blows out a whole section of my head on the side, on the right side. Joe is bent over, holding himself. There's blood all over his lap. There's blood all over me. I make a turn. I'm starting to get dizzy. I'm doing maybe 70 miles an hour and I hit like 6 or 7 parked cars. I'm ramming into them, bouncing off of them. The car I'm driving spins around and now this car is headed right for us. Forget it, it's over. But now I hear the police sirens and this other guy jams on his brakes. I see him backing up. Whoever they are, they don't want nothing to do with the cops. Joe, I say, let's get the fuck out of here. We get out of the car and hobble away up the block. Joe collapses on a lawn. I grab him and drag him into an alleyway. We're laying under like a little shed or some fucking thing. We hear the cops down the street. Joe, I say, we're okay. Sammy, he says, I'm dying. Joe, you ain't dying yet, so come on. I help him down the alleyway. We're on another street near a main avenue. I flag down a cab. We're trying to act normal with blood all over us. When we're in the cab, the cabbie sees all the blood. Remember, it was dark outside, and he says, hold it, my fucking ass. I say, I don't have my gun. I left it in the car. I make my finger like a knuckle and press into the back of his neck. Start driving or I'll blow your fucking brains out. I made him take us back to our neighborhood where my car is. That cabbie doesn't bother waiting to get paid. I got Joe into the car and I drove to the house of another rapper, Jerry Papa. Only now he's hooked in with a made guy in the Genovese family. His name is Dutchy. Pap helps get a bandage on Joe to stop the bleeding. I tell Pap, we need a doctor or something right away. We can't go to a hospital. We'll be pinched. Maybe Dutchy can help. All right, Sammy, Pap says, I'll drive. Finally, he locates Dutchy. Me and Joe are laying in the back seat. By this time, we're just about out of it. I remember opening my eyes and seeing Dutchy staring at us, and I hear him say, Pap, they're dead. What the fuck can I do? Look at them. Pap gets back in the car and says, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna driving you to Coney Island Hospital and you jump out and try and walk in. Joe was moaning real bad now, but I said, fuck the hospital, I ain't going. He says, Joe will die. Well, take Joe there then. And that's what happened. We pull up to the emergency entrance and open the door and push Joe out. He just flops there. That was all we could do. Papa told Sammy that he could end up bleeding to death himself, but Sammy said, "You know, I think I'll be all right. I feel dizzy and weak, but I'm still conscious. The bleeding is stopping." That same night, Papa drove Sammy some distance to a doctor in upstate New York who could be relied on for his discretion. According to the doctor, the bullet, instead of plunging into his brain, had taken off a small piece of his skull behind slightly above his ear. In the hospital, Joe V also miraculously survived. They took out his spleen, and I don't know what else. Sammy said he knew the police had been alerted by the hospital about Joe's gunshot wound, and he stayed out of sight until his own wound healed. There are all sorts of rumors in the neighborhood about me and Joe and what did or didn't happen. I hear the cops are looking for me, so I go in. So I go in. They tell me that they know I shot Joe. What the fuck are you talking about? I shot him. I said, he's my friend. One of the cops said, that's what he told us. You two were in a shootout. Now I know they're trying to bullshit me. So I said, if that's what he told you, then you're crazy and he's fucking crazy. Maybe you should sign him into a mental institution. I'm jerking them off now and they know it. I said, I didn't shoot nobody and nobody shot me. Later, I found out that Joe had said that he was walking down the street and this bullet hit him in the back just like that. He didn't know who did it or why. He didn't know how he got to the hospital, who brought him. He was out of it. After the cops heard these rumors circulating in the neighborhood, they somehow got it mixed up that we had shot it out, or else the rumors did, and and they were making inquiries. I visited Joe in the hospital, and he said, "I'll never forget it. You saved my life." I said, "Fuck saving your life. When you get out of here, we got to find that fucking bum. He tried to kill us for a fucking car. We looked all over where we stole the car, but we never found him. While Sammy was recuperating, we happened to bump into a friend from his old neighborhood, Jerry La Torraco, who had been drafted around the same time he was. Sammy, he said, I got a situation where you could make some good money. Doing what? There's this beauty school in downtown Brooklyn where they teach all about skincare, things like that, how to cut hair. Are you nuts or what? I'm no beautician. No, no. You'd just put in the hair cutting classes your XGI, right? The government pays for the whole thing and you get unemployment tax free because you're learning a trade. I know the guy who runs the place. He just he's just interested in getting the government's money. You walk in, you walk out, do whatever you want. And listen to this. There's about 600 girls in there, full time and part time, and only 5 guys, including me. 2 of them are stone F words. You can consider them women. Of the other 3 of us, one is part time. He only goes at night. I don't know, Sammy said. I'll think about it. Then he met a neighborhood girl named Lorraine who turned out to be attending the school. It's a different Lorraine, not the one I used to go out with, but one I always I was looking to nail. She said, I hear you might be enrolling. I said, I'm thinking about it. Why? She started to laugh. The school is loony, she says. The girls are all crazy. I said, really? what's going on? And she said, all they think about is sex. You should hear them talk. Believe me, you're going to need a cast iron cock. After a couple of days, you won't be able to walk. Well, that sounded good to me. So I go down with Jerry and meet the guy. He's an older guy. I tell him if I do this, all I'm interested in is the unemployment money. I'll be in and out. I'll check in, but when I'm bored, I'm taking off. He said, no problem. I do that with Jerry, but there are certain times you have to listen to me. In those days, I always carried a gun. I open up my jacket and he sees the 38 laying there. I don't have to listen to anybody, I said. And he says, right, all right, you do what you want. Good, I said. We have an understanding. Then he wants me to fill out the forms for the government and the unemployment. I told him I was bad at that. I'll give him the information and he should do the paperwork. He sneaks another peek at at the 38 and says, fine, no problem. That was some school. They had classes for doing nails. I'm not there for that. I was the one they practiced on. I'm getting a manicure every other day and the facials again. I don't take that. I'm the one getting the massages and stuff. Right off the bat, the girl is giving me a facial, and the next thing, she's gone down on me. I'm getting blown. I mean, I'm getting laid every 3 minutes in closets, on massage tables, every time I turn around practically. What I'm supposed to be learning is hair cutting, and I am the worst, the absolute and total world's worst. One day I'm doing a haircut on some lady. She had straight hair, nothing fancy, so it's fairly easy, just to even everything out. Shoulder length. She's sitting in the chair, chatting away, and I'm talking to her. All of a sudden, she ain't saying nothing. I feel like I'm talking to the wall. I look down at her, and there's a wire hanging on her chest, and I'm thinking, what the fuck is that? I said, sweetheart, I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? She turns around and says, what? That's why when I saw it, she has a hearing aid, and I cut the wire going to it. Unfucking believable. In hair cutting, you had to learn how to color hair too, but I pushed it off. The girls at the school would do it for me. One day, this older woman comes in. She wasn't really that old, maybe in her late 50s, but that was old to me then. She's got gray hair and she wants a blue rinse. Everyone's tied up and they tell me, Sammy, you can do it. It's nothing. I just have to put this blue stuff in her hair, like shampoo that brightens it up, takes the yellow, whatever out, gives it a sheen. Let it sit for a while and wash it out. So I said, okay. I put this blue stuff in her hair and it's blue. I mean, really blue. Next, I take her over to the sink to wash it out and nothing happens. It's still fucking blue. It turns out you're supposed to mix the blue stuff first and water it down. But how was I supposed to know? I never done it before. I put in her hair the way it was out of the bottle. Excuse me for a minute, I say, and she says, is something wrong? I said, no, I'll be right. I'll be back in a second. I grabbed the boss. Go to hell. Problem that there's his woman in the back. You can't miss her. Her hair is fucking sky blue and the blue won't come out. I'm going to lunch, take care of her. What do you mean? He says. She's your customer. He tries to give me another shampoo. Use this. This is sure to work. I ain't taking nothing, I said. I ain't going near the woman again. When she looks in a mirror, she'll go nuts. When I got when I got back, the whole school was hysterical. Of course, the guy couldn't get the blue out either, and the woman did go bananas. He had to promise her, I don't know how many free haircuts and everything else. Anything I learned at that school is how women, I mean the customers, talk in beauty parlors. They're loose as a goose. They talk about every fucking thing. It's incredible. You can't believe how dirty they talk. One day I'm working on a woman and she starts telling me, I was with my husband last night and I put ice cubes in my mouth and gave him the best blowjob ever. And she's telling about a lot of other things she's had in mind. She ain't bad looking and she's turning me on. I can't concentrate no more, I say. You can't tell me these things. What do you think that I'm a fucking F word? And I throw down the comb and walk out. I had another problem. My girlfriend Louise finds out about what's going on and at the school that I'm supposed to be screwing everything in sight, and she joins up to keep an eye on me. These other girls know she's my girlfriend, but they don't give a fuck. They're real cagey and sneaky. Louise never actually catches me, but she's been hears rumors. I luck out though. She blames them. When it's time to graduate, to get my license, I figure I don't stand a chance with the state board tests. And by now I'm thinking I want the license. I'm looking ahead. Somewhere down the line, I might open a string of beauty salons and I'll need it. Some of the girls tell me what to do. I used my sister Franny as a model. I had her haircut professionally, and I saved what was cut. I take it on a bag down to where the board tests are, so it's haircut time, and okay, boom, boom. I take the hair out of the bag, wet it, and sprinkle it around her chair. I'm pretending to cut it, then I'm done. The woman inspector comes over. She looks at Franny. She looks at the hair on the floor. I think she checks it out with a comb. I'm on the money. I pass. She nods and says, You're good, pretty good at cutting hair. I said, I know, thank you very much. For the rampers around Sammy's age, a new reality set in as they grew older. They could rob commercial establishments and steal cars all they wanted to, but there was a ceiling on how far they could expand their activities. To take the next step up to open a business, say a bar, a disco, an after hours club, which were especially popular in Bensonhurst, or to run a gambling operation, to loan shark, to pull off a major hijacking. They had to be connected, mobbed up. Some rampers drifted into legitimate blue collar work. The rest, if they could, become became associates with one of the five Cosa Nostra families in New York. In Bensonhurst, the Profaci family had been dominant. When Profaci died and Joe Colombo was anointed his successor as boss, it became the Colombo family. The Gambino family also had a major presence locally. The Genovese, Bonanno, and Lucchese families were in the picture as well. A few rampers ended up in the De Cavalcanti family across the Hudson River in New Jersey. I'm not wasting my time. I'm reading the book anyway, so how's that a waste of time? I want to read it, I'll just read it live on YouTube. If people watch it, they watch it. If they don't, they don't. Who cares? And for this, and besides, my dog's like listening to me read, so. And for Sammy, the message was especially clear when Jimmy Emma was murdered. Of all the rampers, he said, Jimmy was the wildest. One time, we're standing on our corner and we're all heavy, and a police car pulls up. A cop rolls down the window and says, hey, we got a report somebody saw you with a gun. We're going to have to search you. We're all nervous. Every one of us has a gun on him. Jimmy walks forward 3 or 4 feet towards the car and opens his jacket. He's got 2 guns in his belt. Draw, he shouts out. And the cop who's driving hits the gas. You could hear the tires squeal. We all ran up to him and said, Jimmy, what the fuck, are you crazy? There's going to be 8 million cops back here. Fuck them, he says. We'll hide the guns, which was what we did. When they came back, we had no guns. But they pulled in Jimmy. I don't know what happened, but he was out in an hour. No arrests, nothing, lack of evidence, I heard. Now the rampers are tough. We're always banging heads, and there was a club that was run by a captain in the Colombo family. His name was Dominic Scalo. They called him Mimi, a real mean, rough and tumble guy. So we're in this club and it seems there's always trouble with Jimmy in the middle of it, fights and so forth. Finally there's one fight too many. I don't remember what it was about, but Mimi had had enough. When Mimi has a problem with somebody, his solution is to kill. He goes to his boss and asks permission to whack us out, and he got permission. He sends a team of shooters down to the corner where we hung out at 79th and Utrecht. It was late afternoon, and only Jimmy and Jerry Papa were there, washing their cars. These shooters ran up and they blew Jimmy away. They start shooting at Pap. Just then a car passes by and Pap dives into an open window. It was some neighborhood kid who didn't know from nothing. The kid was so scared when they started shooting at his car that he took off. Pap got lucky and got away. I was home at the time. It wasn't late enough yet. I got to the corner about an hour after they took Jimmy's body away. Then I hear this story. One of the guys says, Pap's at the precinct. I think we'll all get together at his bar called Doc's and decide what to do. We're going to strike back. Fuck the Colombos. It sounds nuts, but we're full of piss and vinegar and stupid. Now the cops have us down at the precinct questioning us 1,000,001 questions. I think it was Joe Vitale who called me over and said, Sammy, look at this. On the desk, there was a protection order filled out for Jerry Papa, and he'd signed it. He'd signed it himself, a rat move. We were going to stick together and fight back. What's this? Fuck signing anything. Our relationship and friendship and everything died out from that point on. There were a lot of sit downs amongst the families about us. Basically, what we heard was the decision was that Jimmy was enough. This Dutchie spoke up for Pap and they gave him a pass. Papa eventually became a main member in the Genovese family himself and then got killed. He was shot to death in a restaurant on 69th and 14th Avenue. A guy blew his head off with a shotgun, point blank range. Shortly afterward, Tommy Spiro, who had been with Sammy in the stolen car arrest, came to him. He said, my uncle would love to meet with you. About what? He just wants to talk to you and stuff. Now I know who's Tommy uncle is. His name is Tommy too, except everybody calls him Shorty. He's a big shot. Whatever with the Colombo family. So I say, sure, why not? Yep. So that's the end of that chapter. And that would have us at chapter 3. So, yeah, thanks for your wonderful words of encouragement of how boring it is and I'm wasting my time. That's awesome, man. I like reading. And I watch other people's podcasts. I'd rather just do my own. Whether people watch it or not, it still gets views to my channel, subscribers. So I'm just going to do that. That's a pretty good book. I don't know if you've ever watched this one or not, too, or listened to this one, Underboss. It's kind of cool. It's very familiar now, all the stories. I've been thinking about this one, Murder Machine, about Roy DeMeo, and I don't think I will read it because I think it'll be too gruesome, you know. So I think I'll bail on that one. But anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for leaving your comments. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. That was another, that was 52 minutes, close enough to an hour. Came to the end of the chapter of Sammy the Bull's Underboss. I read it 5 by 5. I'm out.